Hi, everyone. Welcome to L3 Philosophy. This is the show where we go over tools and strategies and stories to help you L3, which is love yourself, love your relationships, and love your life. And today I'm really excited to have Nancy Conte, who is a numerologist who uses numerology to guide people through their relationships and their life path journey. And so she's going to help us better understand how we can use numerology as a tool to help us develop and kind of have a roadmap in our personal road of self discovery and what we're trying to create. So, Nancy, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate you using my work to connect with yours. It means a lot to me, and I can see where they all fit together. So thank you for having me today, Amy.
Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure. And Nancy, I met you well, maybe 1 year, maybe even 2 years ago. I don't know.
Oh
Time
yeah,
flies
yeah,
so
maybe
fast, but I met
yeah.
you at a group party because you do kind of parties for people. My friend invited me and she said, I'm going to have this numerologist here. She's going to give us readings. And I was like, okay, cool. Because, I've often been interested in metaphysical things throughout my whole life and anything that can give me insight to my own personal knowledge and path. And so when you gave me the reading, it just offered so many insights as to why certain things have happened to me in my
Oh
past, what's happening to me in my present,
yeah.
and what I might expect in my future. And of course, nothing is fixed, as you explained. But do you want to kind of help our listeners understand a little bit about what numerology is and how it can be a useful tool?
Well, first of all, I'm so excited that it made you feel that way because that's why I do those groups and why I sit with people so that they can understand who they are, who their partner is, their children. So, numerology, I discovered through my work in mediumship. At the end of every reading, people would ask me, well, what about me? And this path with numbers really connected with me and my curiosity and how I can help others with their life and what those any of those questions are. And often they are surrounding relationships. So numerology helps us see each other and how to appreciate the gifts in one another. And if we're talking about a path, your life path is connected to love, the number six. So, just as a quick example, the number six is all about love and harmony and protecting others and holding each other accountable and responsibility. And so, that's connected to all that you are, and no mistake that you landed in this type of work and how you help people. That's the number six. So that's a great way to even describe that. And then when I sit with couples, we look at their differences in that way. Through their numbers, we can see their challenges and their gifts, and how can we support one another through numerology.
Hmm.
That's a yeah. If that's a good answer, or should I expand?
Yeah, no, let me pause you there for just a moment. So
Yeah,
just so people are clear, when she's
yeah,
saying you're a life path six, she's talking about me specifically when
beautiful.
I had
Yeah.
my reading. And for anyone who doesn't know, I was a high school biology teacher for 16 years, and
Oh my
then
goodness.
I transitioned in my life and became a breakup and relationship coach. So what Nancy's saying here is like super applicable of how I was on this kind of life journey, and it is not actually a coincidence that I landed in helping people with their love lives, with their relationships with themselves and with others, because the life path six, that is kind of your purpose of being here, right? And so that for
Yes.
me was like, so I guess something I experienced, which I think is just a super value piece for people to kind of understand, is that I think things like numerology can really help you feel a sense of validation in, like, because a lot of times we're kind of like going through life and it's kind of like we're clawing around in like a dark room looking for light switches
Absolutely.
or signs to help us understand
Right.
what decisions to make, or are we doing the right thing, or what should I do next. And so, you know, I think it's less of like relying on numerology as something to like tell you what to do versus
Absolutely.
you're making all these choices and here's why, it's supporting you or why it's not supporting you. So do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yes, because that is probably the primary thing that people say to me is the validation that you get when you follow the numbers. So there's many ways that we can look at your numbers. For example, you just gave yours what a life path number means. When I sit with each person, we use your birthday to determine your life path number, and that number helps us see what it is that you've come here to do and what your special gifts are. And what your challenges are. And when you know that your challenges are on purpose, I have many that try to hide from their challenges and stuff it under the rug and just use their gifts. And when you see that your challenges are on purpose and you stand up to them, your life expands in ways that you could never imagine because it's what you've come here to do. And no surprise either that you were a teacher because the number six is also they make great teachers. I see them in law enforcement, in hospitals, in schools because your this life path is one of service. So it's when I sit with people and they say, "What am I supposed to do?" Kind of like what you're talking about. It's really not what you're supposed to do. It's what you have inside that you can contribute to life. So as a six path, you can use this gift in many areas of your life, which you have, and love being the primary force. So, and then we might have, if we use a life path one, for example, you think about the number one, and it's a leader and a trailblazer and someone that's come to be brave and stand in front of the room and say, let's do this. They're brave enough. So if you have two souls, a life path one and a life path six, for example, you can see how those two numbers can really support one another with love and with that spontaneous, courageous person. You see, the responsible person with the one that takes a leap of faith. So that's just one example of how I might sit with a couple. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think that that also has such tremendous value because when I work with people, I think a lot of times when people are going through a breakup, a divorce, or they've had some kind of toxic relationship
sure,
in the past, it can be really easy to kind of focus all of your energy on the other person and what either they did or didn't do, or like kind of holding on to things kind of that happened to you in a relationship
sure.
almost, and that's kind of like a victim-y mindset, and so
Yep.
what I always try to explain to people is that, relationships are a dynamic, and both people are feeding into it in a
Hmm.
certain way that's creating a specific outcome, and so what you're saying about numerology here is that when we have an understanding, and that's why this is a tool, right? Is because
Right.
we're just trying to understand ourselves better, and if we have a partner, maybe understand them better, because then when you understand, like, maybe your purpose is something completely different from theirs, and maybe you're
Yes.
always having like a clash or a conflict around it, and you're like, why can't the other person see from my point of view, or why are we always fighting about this? But it's because you're on completely different paths, or you have completely different dynamics around your own number. So when you can understand how those two interact with each other, I would imagine that it would make it a lot, not necessarily easy, but at least you can kind of come to some kind of understanding around
Understanding. That is,
yourself and each
yeah.
other.
And that is really the basis behind what I do is not only to help you understand yourself, but the people in your life, like your children. So you have a few different children. Knowing all their paths can really help you support them on theirs rather than expecting them to live their life the way you do, which is hard as a parent. You want your child to get the very best start at life. Well, they might be starting their life in a different way. Their life might be all about change, and your life might be about being at the same company for 20 years. So when I sit with those parents and they have a child that's a teen jumping from job to job, it makes them crazy, thinking that they're not going to be successful when in fact it's quite the opposite. If that child conformed to be the way you are, they're actually holding themselves back. So it's wonderful as a parent to know these things, to know that this is where they're going and this is how I might support my other child that might be sensitive, right? And when we have a sensitive child or a sensitive person, they can often grow up to think sensitivity is bad because you hear, oh, you're so sensitive, when really it's their most tremendous gift. And what
Wow.
happens when they're young is they hear you're so sensitive and they try to shut it off because it's like, oh, I'm so sensitive. When really, as a parent, you want to encourage that child to balance that sensitivity and use it to help their world, where the other child might be jumping from thing to thing, but each person has their own way to show up. So as a parent, these tools are wonderful as much as it is incredible in your relationship to be able to support maybe your husband on his life path that has trouble with forgiveness. how do you help him move through that? And how do you move through that knowing this? So these are wonderful tools, like you said.
Yeah, that was a wonderful example. And I would love for you to, if you want to share, because I know that you have told me before that numerology has just been a tremendous help for you as a family unit because you
Yes.
understand each other better. And you, in your example might have kind of been like, with your child, but you can speak to that more. But I think it's really powerful what you said because being told that, "Oh, you're too much," like, as a kid, or,
Yeah.
"You're stop being so emotional," or, like, "Why do you cry all the time?" Or
Right.
I love that you're saying that this could be that person's most tremendous gift. I
Yeah.
know that I've been told
Amazing.
numerous times in my life
Oh.
that I'm, like, you know, very intense or, like, I have very reactive emotions, and so
Okay.
I thought for many, many years, like, there's something wrong with me, like, I need to fix this, like, someone else isn't going to love me because I'm too much, like, in this regard, right? But what you're saying and now knowing, like, my life path is about love and relationships and this stuff, it's like, wow, this I have found in working with people now for 4 years that this actually is a tremendous gift that I am so tapped into my emotions because people come to me,
Yeah.
they really have no idea how to identify what they're feeling. They just know they feel like crap,
Yeah.
excuse me, or like really, really sad. And
Yeah.
I am so easily able to pinpoint like how they're feeling and help them express that. And so I really appreciate you sharing how we can take something that we might have been socialized to think is, bad or negative,
Yeah.
and in reality it could be our biggest strength.
And it's great to hear somebody tell you that your challenges are on purpose and you're not alone. How amazing people feel after a call when they hear this thing that you're going through. I'm sure the same with your calls. You're not alone. This is part of your journey, and the sooner you accept it, embrace it, try to balance it, the better. Right. So in my own home life, I think that, yeah, if I didn't use numerology in my business, I live by numbers every day, right? And so with my child, yeah, he's sensitive, but he's powerful, and so he lives a life of extremes. The life path 8, the number 8 is all about power and strength and how to use it, how to embrace it, how to live outside of the insecurities that comes with. And then my husband is very intense. He's a Scorpio. He's a life path 9. He's very intense, and he thinks that people should understand things. They just should. While my son gets, so in other words, it ends up being what's a power struggle, and identifying who we all are through numbers has really helped my husband see you can't push this powerful path. You can't push him. If you push, they push back, and they don't budge. And they're the most generous, kind souls. So he works from kindness. You try to push him from discipline, and you will get nothing. And and it really helped knowing this as he was going through school. I explained it to his teachers. When he shuts down, he feels not supported. I mean, that's the truth. When he feels that someone understands him, you have all of him. And I know that I would have never known that without really studying his number, and my
Mhm.
husband's and mine, and how we all connect together. And as family, I believe, if I recall, it the whole dynamic adds up to 6. I believe that's what it is. I have to double check, which is love, harmony, connection, support. You can add up all your numbers together as a family. That's fascinating. As a couple, you can do the same. And
Okay.
so
So you mean
knowing that,
in your family, it adds up to 6. Is
I
that like,
think,
or are
or
you
maybe
saying 6
maybe it
all
might
like,
just be, actually it's just me and my husband. Me and my husband, our numbers reduced down to 6, and the number 6 is about creating that home harmony family. A relationship that adds up to 6 is really a space for people to gather, children to feel supported. That's the number 6. So knowing how you connect as a couple, you know your husband's life path, you know your own, what you've come to do together, and how you can be supportive to one another and your children is priceless. It's
Mhm.
priceless.
I can't even imagine, like, how much more supportive it is to know this information,
Yeah, I can't.
because you can understand how to relate better to the people in your life and the people that you love. And quite honestly, you could do this for people you don't even like too, because
Yeah.
you know their number. It's like, well, I get why they're acting that way
I
because
do that all
you
the time.
know
Yep.
certain things about like they have a completely different vantage point maybe than you do, but you can understand that at least because you understand like their
They're
life path or their other number dynamics. Um,
it really is powerful, you know, because of course, because of the line of work I do as well, you understand this too, is you end up being that person that people come just to vent, you know, your friends do. So I can cut to the chase and explain who they are together in numbers and how they could approach this situation. Because as you know, people that are adversarial in our life come there for a reason as well, and that is for us to learn how to either forgive or move through this. Or so you can see that in the patterns of the numbers. It's quite interesting.
It is super fascinating.
Yeah.
And I would love for us to talk a little bit more too. So I know that numerology is very complex and I'm just kind of pulling from the reading that you had given me a while ago,
Okay.
given me some, a
Oh
few
yeah.
since. And so, as I understand it, and you can expand on this, is that, you have certain characteristics about your specific number, but then there's also this whole kind of life cycle that is based
Yeah.
on numbers. And I think it's 1 through 9. And
Yeah.
you can correct me.
Yep.
So do you want to kind of tell us a little bit about the different aspects of numerology and how we can use our own number and then the life cycle numbers.
Yeah, I would love to, because that's really my one of my most favorite parts, as well as the relationships. So our lives, I love that you remember, our lives move in 9-year cycles, one being the beginning of the cycle, nine being the end, and every year it changes. So 2025 to me, for example, I'll use myself, I'm in a year 2 in the cycle. So what I do, rather than focus on a New Year's resolution, all year long, I'm remembering, what does the number 2 mean? And I really feel it's just so important to live through the year remembering this. If so, the year 2 is about harmony. It's about sensitivity. So it's really important in this year for me that relationships are harmonious. If they're not, they will bother me more this year. And then we call the year 2 the year of shaking of the hands. So it's a year of collaboration. It's a year of connecting with others. Making a deal or making an agreement. It's all about connection. Where last year, the beginning of a cycle is about you and your thoughts, your ideas, and planting the seed for the next 9 years. So if you think about every year and what it means, it helps you. If you're in a year of ground building, it's a slower moving year and it's frustrating. It's quite frustrating. You're building, if you think about building your business, right? You're laying bricks, brick by brick by brick, and you're sometimes saying, well, where's my stuff, where's my reward? And really the year is all about that patience. So when I read for people in that year, their 4 year, I do find they are the most frustrated because it's slow going, and it's, but everything you do that year means so much. So I love to be able to tell them that, and when we hang up the phone, they know that I just have to be patient, and everything I'm doing, every piece, every addition to my business, it matters. And how helpful it is throughout your year to know this, that you need extra patience, or change is coming around every corner. Like I think about it every day, and I know who's in what year in my house. It's great to support them.
Yeah, yeah. Because so I think when I had my first reading with you, I might have been in a year 4, which I think you just said is like very
Oh my goodness.
frustrating because you're like planting the seeds and you might not be seeing much of the outcome yet because they're just still in the ground and you're just kind of laying them, right? And
Yeah.
then I think last year was a year 5 for me, which is more of like, okay, you're starting to slowly see the seeds sprout.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just, again, tremendous value in just even understanding where you're at, because if you're working so hard to get
Right.
from point A to point B and you're not seeing the progress that you think you should be seeing at a certain time, if you just kind of know okay, this whole year is about planting seeds, about planting, building my strong foundation, and I can expect to see more rewards next year.
Yes.
Like
It
even
gets you
that just
through.
like relieves some of the pressures,
Yes, it
stress.
gets you through. Like, when you started the call about confirmation, that really is one more confirmation for yourself. When you want, when you want to give up and to be able to support someone through, please don't give up because, coming in your next couple of years, every year has its own way in which what you're doing matters more than you can ever imagine. So it really is wonderful to know that and show it to somebody on a piece of paper. So when I give somebody a reading over the phone like this, I follow up with a video and I show them their chart so that they can look back at it. It's recorded and they can look back and say, show the numbers where they've come from and where they're going. And
Mm.
that's tremendous as well. And especially if someone's at the end of a cycle, boy, having a reading then is, I can't even explain because they are really ready to just, go to sleep and shut everybody out. And so we can talk about why,
Yeah,
when the
yeah.
cycle ends.
Yeah, and so I think too, bringing this just to some of the experiences that I've had working with people as a breakup and relationship coach,
Sure.
own experiences with breakups and ending. It's like, okay, you're thinking about, endings when you're going through it because it feels so disruptive and a lot of times just heartbreaking. And you're just like, how am I ever going to get through this? And so you might kind of think about it as a year of like doom and gloom
Yes.
or just like no hope, just all these really kind of negative lower frequency vibrations. Whereas if, I had found out in my reading that this is actually a year of new beginnings, then I would understand that I have to go through this ending in
It's
order for my
amazing.
new
Yeah.
beginning to, so that again, it can provide hope, it can provide validation for what you're going through. And I think about the visual that you said you draw it for people. I think about that timeline that you drew for me all the time, and I'm like, oh, I'm
Oh,
here. Like I know almost like X marks the spot.
that means a lot to me. Yeah, I do feel like we all um, take in information differently. So, on the phone or video, and then following up visually, it depends on how people receive information. So, I like to have both, and as well as it's great to go back and check. Where am I going to? And without talking to me, without having a numerology reading, your soul is already guiding you. Your soul is telling you to go this way, but we all question our intuition. We just do, in this physical realm. So numerology really helps solidify like why you're feeling that way. And again, we go back to, clarification. Numbers can bring so much clarification. And
Yeah. And I
the
would love
the
to also kind of go back to something that you said around every year holds kind of an energy to it. And so I would love to talk just a little bit about because, some people might view numerology, astrology, all these more kind of, they might be like, oh, it's woo woo. Um,
yeah.
However, can you explain to us a little bit about like how this relates to not only like the science of numbers, but also to the fact that everything on this earth has an energy?
Yeah, so numbers, in school, they're used to quantify, and we never are told or learn about the fact that they carry energy. Everything in our universe is connected to numbers, everything that we do. And even when people receive the repetitive numbers, no matter what kind of person you are, whether you're logical or whether you're into psychic work, those numbers always grab people's attention. It's the most common questions I get, like, why am I seeing 444 every day? And the universe is trying to get your attention, and they can communicate with you through those numbers because it makes you stop and look. And some of the most common questions too is the 111. And when you
To
see
ask you
those,
about that one because
when
I see it multiple times a week for at
you
least the
do,
past couple of months. Yes. So
that's
I was going to ask
amazing.
you about 111.
And it's great that the fact that you're paying attention, first of all, you'll receive more of those messages from spirit that they know that they're reaching you through the numbers. But the 111 is almost like encouragement to keep your intentions high. And so in those moments of 111, it's even great to make some notes. Like, what are you thinking about in that exact moment?
Mhm.
And if it's higher vibration, spirit is supporting that. If you are thinking in a lower vibration, spirit is saying, or the numbers are saying, um, pay attention to your thoughts because thoughts become things. And ones is about creation. So
Mhm.
pay attention to those thoughts. And then to think about the people that really don't connect with what we call psychic work or mediumship work, like I used to do. What I have found through numerology is this speaks to everyone across the board. I mean, I read for a stockbroker, I read for psychologists, I read for coaches in Google, and then hairdressers and mothers. It speaks to everybody because I can show you into the most logical person how I achieve, how I got the number, and I can tell you what each number means. And so those videos are great for the logical minded people that they can. Some people don't care about how I got to where I got. They don't care. They just, wow, that's really cool. I love that. And then the people that like data, like the number 7 is connected to science based research. These people are all often scientists or work well alone or accountants. You show them in those numbers, and you've almost like awoken them to see that there's more to what's around them than they can physically see.
Mhm.
And so numbers show this, and it's wonderful. It connects the physical and the metaphysical, and those both sides of the brain. Maybe for those that again don't, if you sat, if I didn't have numbers and you sat and told the logical minded person what you're picking up psychically, that's not going to reach them.
Yeah.
They're not there right now, and that's okay. That's fine. So it's wonderful to have something that speaks to everyone, no matter where I go. I don't care how like maybe closed minded they think that they might be. This speaks to them.
Mhm. Yeah, because you can actually kinda see it done out and where things are coming from.
Yeah,
Um,
and they can
Another
do it
thing.
themselves if they want.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
what they see. Like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's a cool component as well. And I also remember, we've talked about this before, and it came up when you were doing my reading and the reading for my partner, that there are also these things called master numbers.
Oh yeah.
And one of the master numbers came up for me. I'm not a master number, but it came up during. Well, actually, you showed me what they were, and I was like, oh, I'm like, I see. That's been my number. Like it was my volleyball number in high school. It
Oh my
was
goodness. Yeah.
it's my favorite number, it's the number I use if I'm gonna, play the lottery or something. And they were like, "Oh, that's a master number and this is what it means." So, like, what are those? And I know that you're a master number as well. So
Yeah. So, so master numbers. This is a higher vibrational path, and so master numbers vibrate a little bit higher. It's a high frequency, and so in that high frequency, there is more challenge. So you start off the early years of your life with more challenge, more things to conquer, and it will never escape you. It's always there. But in that higher challenge, there are higher gifts. So to move through the deep emotional number that mine is, it starts out a life of lots of emotional pain, maybe as a child, not all, but some. And so as you move through your life and learn how to balance those emotions and how to use them in the world, then it's where the master number truly expands, right? And then there's a number that's called the Master 22. They're a little bit more logical, and they have huge mountains to climb. They are one of the strongest numbers in numerology, and it's probably one of the most common I read for because they have hurdles in front of them every minute. But at the same time, their life would not be complete without a project. They can't live without multiple projects going on. And is the master number in your life? Is it the day you're born? What's the day you're born?
no, my birthday is the 4th, and so I know that's not a master number,
It's a strong number. Yeah.
but I had been when you wrote down that 22 as a master number, that's the one where I was like, "Oh, I've always seen 22
Oh,
since I was,
it's
younger."
so that's kind of connected to your birthday because 22 reduces down to 4. So that you probably have that connection to the number in your birthday. And that's all, everything's connected. So you're
Yeah.
drawn to the master number 22. Well, because you are, driven, hardworking soul, that number speaks to you. When you can use that anywhere in your life, absolutely do that because that's connected to hard work and business, accomplishment, logic, all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so master numbers have a little bit of a trickier start to life, but they're here to make an impact with their gifts. And if you are a master number, and I have come across some that they don't want to use it in the world, that's okay because they can just live how they like. In other words, a master 22 reduces down to four, the number four. They don't have to live in the always climbing the mountain of the master 22 should they choose not to use that. It's
Mhm.
really a personal choice. It's kind of hard to explain, but
Mhm.
master numbers are complex,
Yeah.
as you said, yeah. And interesting enough, you can look at the vibration of your business, your home, looking at your numbers as well. So most recently, a hairdresser in the city, she's getting ready to pick out three different locations, and I read each location with the numbers, and it was so spot on for her and what she felt when she walked into each space. It helped her choose, and that's incredible too. Yeah,
Whoa. What do you mean,
yeah.
like the address number?
Yeah, so the address, the number of the house.
Oh.
So the number of my house reduces down to 5, and the number 5 is really all about embracing change and its activity and its constant movement, its emotion, and my house is perpetual motion, and it's all about experience, and so that's what goes on here. And so it's really fun to look at your property and get a read on it through numbers.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. I don't think I was aware of that, so
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to do that for you. Yeah, you'll love it.
yeah.
It's really fun. And the
Oh,
thing is, the thing with knowing that is there's not really great ways to change it, so you want to embrace it because you can't change that, you know. Well, unless you move, but
right, unless
yeah,
you're just, like, in the position that the hairstylist was in where she was about
yeah,
to make a choice, right? So she can use that knowledge before she makes a decision.
yeah. It was really interesting for her.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful.
Yeah,
I wanna go back to another thing that you said, which is that, numerology can help us understand not only our gifts, but also our challenges.
yeah.
So, I know that that was true for me, like I said in my reading, where the whole kind of first half of my life was really about kind of going through hardship in relationships myself so that I could learn valuable lessons.
Isn't it interesting? It's
Yeah.
something. It's something. Yeah.
So what have you seen? I don't know if you have any specific examples either for yourself or people that you've helped where knowing your challenges, like how can that be helpful? Aside from being really validating, it's like, okay, well, now I kind of
So
get why I've been going through all of this. There's a reason.
here's a great example because this happens all the time. The number three, the life path three, when I sit with those people, I feel so happy for them coming to me because I know how they're going to leave after I read for them. They're the lighter of the souls. So they're generally happy and they funny and witty and they bring like the fun to the room. People are attracted to them. Um, but they have a hard time in life because they don't like to speak up. They don't like to say if someone hurt them. They don't like to say I really rather not do that. They'll do more for themselves than they'll do more for everyone else than they'll do for themselves. So they are definitely not no people, and they have problems or worries that spin around in the mind. And they've come here to use all the beautiful gifts, which they're so good at, but they don't know how to speak. And it's across the board and it's difficult. So when I explain to them that when you speak, when you speak up, it is going to open your life in ways that you can't imagine, even if it's in an email, right? If they're not brave enough, they'd rather crawl under a desk than tell somebody that they're mad at them or approach it or discuss it, where you and I could never imagine that, right? Where we easily can speak. So but
Absolutely.
they so when they speak, say if they just give even an email to let their boss know something, the fact that they spoke at all gets them more attention, and it's like someone was breathing life into them because they've come here to stand up to the challenge. And when you stand up to the challenge, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. You're rewarded in bigger ways, and that's how I'm able to help them in that way. A life path one, they're similar in the way they show up. They show up as this pillar of strength. You think of the number one, and they are the leaders in the room. They run the company of 100, or so they're here to inspire every day. No one ever sees them as ever having an issue. They don't show, because first of all, there's like some of the ego that's there, and they feel like they can't let others see that they have a weakness. But when they go home at night, they have this deep pool of insecurity that nobody will ever see. When I start to talk to them about that, it's almost like they breathe a sigh of relief to know that this anxiety at night that I feel like imposter syndrome is not just me, it's what I've come to conquer. And it helps them because they can't tell anybody, because they're always hiding behind. They have fears too. They're people too. So those are the most those two I think stand out to me the most, because these two numbers are always the bright light in the room, and they're afraid to show that they're anything but.
Yeah.
So how amazing is it for the life path one to I feel them on the phone. I feel them just breathe. And
Yeah.
how great is that?
Just like a
Yeah.
release of pressure and
Yeah.
stress that they put on themselves, or, expectation they put on themselves to be a certain way.
Yeah. And
And I
to
think,
show, to
you know what
accept help.
yeah. Yeah, and if we're thinking about kind of the L3 philosophy, love yourself, love your relationships, love your life, I always am talking about how everything in our lives starts from the core, which is ourselves. This is
I love it.
why love yourself is the first L.
Yeah, I love it.
So, how how else would you say numerology can help us love ourselves and understand ourselves at almost, like when we say love ourselves, it's very kind of abstract. So
Right.
how can it help us kinda come to this, level of acceptance and embrace all the parts like you were just talking about? Some people call them like the shadow parts, or,
Sure.
the blind spots, or, whatever it is that you might perceive as being negative.
Right.
How can understanding your number help you to embrace all parts of it and understand that it's actually all here working for you?
Yeah, it's so I still remember the first day I got my numerology reading. I've been into some kind of work in the metaphysical my whole life. And when a friend gifted me a numerology reading, I felt like someone took that little puzzle piece and put it right here, and my world opened up in ways I can't explain. It really validated for me why I was doing what I was doing, what it all meant. And from there, I studied every piece of numbers that I could find to this day. But when you sit with someone and talk to them about what all their gifts mean and their numbers and all their challenge, they stop comparing themselves to others, right? Because you look at your sister, or you look at your best friend, or either someone's making all this money, or someone has more strength than you can ever imagine, that you couldn't have a piece of it. So when you see that your path is not like theirs, you don't have to be like your sister, you don't have to be like your best friend, you have to be like you. And so this goes back to what you're saying, loving yourself, what you're here to do. And so then you can appreciate, like, if we think about the sensitivity, or we think about, I'm more logical, so I don't always show my emotions, and people think that I don't have any, so you can then start to look at you and stop looking at everybody else, and you grow in that way. I know that I did. My everything changed when I had that. I mean, I've been studying my whole life, but when I had that numerology reading, everything made sense. And it was like she gave me the biggest gift of my life. I still tell her that to this day. It's my best friend. She had that numerology reading, and it helped her discover some deep, deep pain. So it did different for her than it did me. But again, it's the same thing. It's we're all on these individual paths. And to pinpoint, for the life path three, for example, you know, instead of hiding behind the under the desk, and feeling so badly inside because you can't speak up, maybe poke your head out a little bit and find out what happens when you do, and you see yourself expand, instead of you just keep ignoring and keep ignoring and keep ignoring. What happens? They are some of the most anxious people, because they keep letting things stack, and they end up with, what do they say, what can happen to a life path 3 in their body over time, they have this mental and physical anxiety over time if they don't release it. So even health wise, it can help you.
Oh, yeah.
See you, you know?
Yeah, because oftentimes, the things that we're not addressing in other areas of our life, especially emotionally, mentally,
Yes,
spiritually, they definitely can manifest as physical ailments or diseases or other
every time.
physical things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then something that you had said, oh, huge, huge. I'm so, so glad that you shared the comparison thing
With the
because
your
yeah, because I think it's just such a natural human thing to do, especially in westernized society, is
yeah,
this everything is competition. And so
right.
I think I know every example that you gave. I was like, yep, I did that, I did that, I did that. It was because
Oh, you
like,
understand. Yeah.
yeah, well, and just to kind of give examples for other people too, is like, okay, if you're single, if you've just gone through a breakup, like you might look at other people, like you said, your best friend, your sister, and be like, oh, why are they in a
Yeah.
happy 30-year marriage and they still seem as happy as the day that they met? Like, why can't I have that? Like, that might not be your path. Like, you might need to go through some things to learn some lessons with a few different people,
Right.
in order to get you to your kind of higher actualized self.
And
Um,
that's why we're here, right?
yeah,
To
yeah,
take on these lessons. And when
and
you
like you're
brought up
saying,
master I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, no,
Uh,
even when you were saying like, "Oh, my sister," and I was thinking of my sister right away. I have a younger sister, and my
okay.
whole life, I've just admired her
Oh.
natural, just, like, ability to be unabashedly herself at all times. And I'm just like, "How does she do that?" Because I've always been more of, like, the people pleaser, role model, perfectionist, like make sure I do a good job and at the cost of sometimes like just fully being myself. And so for me, to compare myself to her, well, she's probably a different life path than me. She's probably a different number than me.
I wanna do it when we're done this call. Now that I'm curious, we'll do that. And see,
But
and
yeah, these examples that you're giving, it's just like that you can see how they might show up in so many different areas, and the same
yeah,
for business, right? An entrepreneur who's just trying to figure things out, and you're comparing yourself to people who are just like killing it. And it's like, well, they've only been doing this for a year. I've been doing it for 4 years. How come it works for them and it doesn't work for me? So
right. Yeah, and especially with women in small business, there's a lot of like looking at themselves, wondering whether they can do it or they can't, and looking at the person beside them. There's so much of that. So I really feel like numerology is so helpful in that way to pinpoint what it is that you're here to do. And when I think about your life path number 6, your number is the same as my spiritual teacher, and I think it's why I relate to you so much. So she makes sure that everything's done correctly, and she gives me a space of comfort because she creates structure, and but she does it through kindness. So that speaks to me at who I am as a life path 33. And so your sister, you're meant to do like all the details, in the structure speaks to people, and her life is different. Obviously, we could talk about why. And
yeah.
I was about to say something with master numbers too,
Yes,
and
I
we
wanted
were
to bring it back because I kind of interrupted you because
no,
I'm
that's okay.
excited about the comparison thing.
Yeah, no, the I was trying to think. Master numbers and old souls, right? And so
Mm.
when we do your life path reading, we talk about the master numbers and the old souls in your life, and a lot of master numbers and old souls sometimes have problems early on with relationships because they have a higher vibrational path. Their soul knows a lot more, and they really often only connect with certain souls. They don't connect with just everyone. So when I am reading for, say, a Master 11 woman who's deeply sensitive, highly spiritual, they're single sometimes a lot longer because their true partner has to be on a different alignment in their life. So that helps them too. So while they think that they'll never meet somebody or that they're not good enough for somebody, it's because it's a smaller pool of people basically. So it's wonderful to discuss that too. Um, and I think I really feel like I meet a Master 11 every group that I go to, and they're often single or or the opposite. they have, 3 and 4 kids, and they are giving of themselves selflessly. But again, it helps explain that too. It helps explain where you are in your relationships and why, as well as business and why.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
which again is so powerful because here it's all about how we think about things. And that's one of the things I help people with is how can we reframe our thoughts so that they're supportive versus hindering us or holding us back. And so
Yeah.
if you're spending years of your life as a single person, it's very easy, especially in our society, especially as a woman,
Yeah.
is to think there's something wrong with me. Or like maybe I'm not lovable, or
Right.
maybe there's no one out there for me. And then you start having all these almost like self-deprecating belief systems, whereas you're saying, actually, you might be a evolved soul.
Yes.
Therefore, you are waiting to find someone who's more of your equal on that spiritual plane.
Yeah.
And that
And
might not be the truth for everyone. Maybe you are someone who needs to evolve. Maybe you're that other person who needs to evolve up the chain before you can find someone who's aligned.
maybe,
But
maybe you
it
have to.
definitely goes both ways.
It does, and to know that too, to look at what parts of myself that I'm supposed to be fixing at this stage of my life that I'm not, because we have, there's one a life path member that lives in maybe negativity and sees the world from an angry place. The older they get, and the longer that they don't address that, the harder their relationships become. And that's really, they carry things heavily. So that's good to know. The longer you remain in what feels like bitterness and blame,
Yeah.
and the longer that you don't approach that, the harder their life becomes. And
Yeah.
so, and I read, there's a psychologist that I read for on that path. And so I always thought before, she carries the weight of all her clients. And then she's also carrying the weight of her. And her number is all about carrying weight.
Oh, man. That
So
sounds
she's got,
exhausting.
yeah, they get exhausted. They definitely do.
Yeah.
By their
Wow.
50s, they're exhausted. So
Wow.
it's really great to say, how can I lift that? And we know that how you can lift yourself is by putting some things down, releasing. And release isn't just about a task, it's also about emotion, and
For sure.
releasing what you're carrying, which I'm sure you know, uh, take on in your work every day too. What are you carrying and what do you need to put down? And numbers can show us that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's just like this never-ending kind of
It's all
vault
connected.
of, self-discovery.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I am super passionate about. It's why I started the podcast. This is, what
I
kind
love
of
what you
what I
do.
think my mission in life is to help people understand who they are, which I
Yeah.
think is what you do as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Because ultimately, when we can understand who we are, why we do what we do, again, we can come to that acceptance, and then that is self-love, which then allows us to be able to more fully love other people. That's that second ripple, relationships.
It's true.
And we can love our relationships and have them be really, really healthy and whole. That ripples out into our entire life of what we kind of allow ourselves to create as a whole entire experience here on
Yeah.
Earth. So,
I love the way you phrase all of that. It's huge. I really believe so. That when
yeah,
we can support ourselves first, like the whole idea of your business, it's how we grow, it's how we expand, and it's how we make a difference in the world. And when we use our gifts in the world, it's what we've come to do. When we use them in the world, we become better people, and the people around us benefit in ways that we don't even see sometimes. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. And it might not be easy, and most
it
of the time
never.
it's not easy, but
No.
like having that understanding can be like a helpful component in helping you kind of progress and evolve and trudge through the muck to get to the gold on the other side and then start all
And
over again.
and to even help you choose, like, if you're, say that you're in this career, particular career, for a while, and you're ready to choose something different, numerology can sort of get you started on that. It can help you
Mm.
take a look at, well, what are my other talents, and how can I use them? And when you do use what you're good at, um, doors open a little easier. you're
Oh,
you're you're not fighting against, you're flowing with who you've come to be. And we know that when you do that, when you flow, I mean, it's just easier. Life is
yeah.
easier.
Get rid of the resistance. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
Nancy, I would love for you to share how people can get in touch with you and definitely follow you on social media. I know I do because you're
Oh,
always
yeah.
posting,
Thank you.
readings, for the day, for the month, anything that's happening with the planets. So,
um, yeah, I do. I definitely do a lot on Instagram because I just find it a fun platform visually, and so I love to share about numbers there. You can link in my bio there to, and I think you'll probably share my Instagram on here, right, when you're
yeah,
finished. Or
yeah, go ahead and say it though,
okay,
just in case
but yeah,
people don't want
so
to read
I
it.
you can link there to book any kind of session. I also combine tarot with numerology, and it's really fascinating in some readings how the numbers in the cards connect with the numerology reading, so further confirming what we just talked about and aligning you. So that's great too. I do giveaways once a month. I also do group readings. Which is fun. I love to meet people in person, and the way I met you,
Mhm.
they're a much smaller, quicker session, but it's a great introductory. And I find that every home I go into, I'm always introducing people to numbers, and so that's enjoyable. So tarot, numerology on Instagram in home. I also do. I'm gonna say, if you have fundraisers, I love to, donate with a couple of readings. You can
Oh,
contact me that way. I love to share in that way. And then what else am I forgetting? Is that
yeah,
everything?
just like how people can reach out to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
So that way, and my website, and we can include that too.
Yeah, go ahead and
And
say it out so that people can hear it if they're listening and not.
NancyAngelinaConti.com.
Okay,
They can,
awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
And yeah, I will link them in the description for people who want to look for that, or you can, reach out to me directly and I can be happy to send you Nancy's links. And so thank you. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your
you.
power today. Thank you for sharing your stories and let's move forward with,
Yeah,
being
that's
more
great.
curious about numbers because they're absolutely everywhere. So
Thank you. You've made this so easy. Thank you, Emmy. You're so good at
yeah.
what you do. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And to everybody who's watching, it is my pleasure to believe in you and to
Oh.
celebrate the gifts that you bring to the world. So see you next time in the next video.